It's a wonderful start to our morning. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Silver Spring. My name is Kelly Klein. I am this morning's worship associate, and my pronouns are she, her, and hers. From many cultures and sexualities, genders, and beliefs, we come together into one congregation. If you're visiting us today, we're so glad you're here. If you'd like to learn more about our free faith or how to join this congregation, Linda Barrett is today's welcoming captain. She's raising her hand in the back. Hi, Linda. And she'll be happy to connect with you. This service recognizes the enduring impact of the 1967 to 1970 Black empowerment controversy that resulted in many Black UUs leaving our faith. We will reflect on how radical shared ministry can be a beacon of hope as we step out of our comfort zones and into our highest values. Reverend Ebony Peace is a friend of our congregation who grew up within our religious education program. Her father, Dr. Dennis Scurry, has been a member of UUCSS since 1987. Ebony resides in Maryland with her 2 children and 17-year-old cat, Xena. When she's not guest preaching, she serves as community minister at Mount Vernon Unitarian Church in Alexandria and as a professor of sociology at Montgomery College. About halfway through the service, children ages 3 and up will be invited to expand our worship circle by joining other children their age to learn and grow together. Today's flowers were donated by Carrie Schneider. In just a minute, we will be invited to greet our neighbors. I invite those on Zoom to say hello in the chat, and those here in body to greet one another around the sanctuary. Please head back to your seat and stay standing when the music starts for our opening hymn. Now it's time to light our chalice, symbol of our free faith. I will light it and we'll say the words that are going to appear on the screen. May this light warm our hearts with love and caring and guide us in the ways of truth.
Good morning. I would love to invite all of our children, all of our youth, anyone who's even just young at heart, to come on up and hear a wisdom story about a very, very special. What is this? It's a horse. That's right. A very special horse named Sergeant Reckless. Let's see. We're going to learn about Sergeant Reckless. That's right. Come on up. Love to see you. Ooh, you have a little friend there. What's his name? What's his name? Foxyton. Wonderful. Well, this horsey here, we're going to pretend this is Reckless here. Can Reckless hang out with Foxyton over there? Can one of y'all hold? I need to get this other arm free. Reckless, Sergeant Reckless. She wasn't even 5 feet tall, but she carried ammo through the machine gun fire like she didn't know fear existed. Her name was Reckless. And she was the only horse in the U.S. Marine Corps history to earn a rank and a promotion and get lots and lots of medals. She started her life far from the battlefield, a small chestnut mare in South Korea, originally owned by a young boy who used her to help his family haul rice. She was gentle, smart, and tough, but no one imagined she would become a Marine legend. Then came the Korean War. Reckless was sold to a Marine lieutenant for $250, which was a lot back then, even more. And this was money that the boy's family desperately needed because their home had been destroyed. The Marines bought her to carry ammunition for a rifle platoon, a job so dangerous that losing animals was common. But Reckless was not common. From the moment she stepped into the camp, everyone knew she was different. She learned her name in just one day. She memorized her routes after a single run. She walked through barbed wire, smoke, and chaos without getting spooked. She had a personality, stealing soldiers' pancakes, wandering into tents to nap on their blankets, and even sneaking beverages when no one was watching. But when the firing started in the war, this playful little horse became something else entirely. Her greatest test came in March of 1953 during the Battle of Outpost Vegas. It was a fierce war going on, and the Marines there described this as a sea of fire. The shells whistled through the air every second, machine guns rattled nonstop, and the men were screaming for ammo. And Reckless moved. Make Reckless move. Move Reckless, yeah. There she goes. There she goes. Awesome. Without a handler, without fear, and without stopping, over the course of this brutal day, this small red mare made 51 trips up and down a steep, exposed hill, carrying heavy shells to the Marines at the front. Yeah, wow, she covered more than 35 miles under fire. She hauled over 9,000 pounds of ammunition. She shielded wounded Marines with her own body. And every time she returned for another load, she came back at a trot. Ears pricked forward, determined to get the supplies to the men who depended on her. She was hit twice by scrap metal, once in the neck and once above her eye. But she didn't stop, not once. The Marines later said that they could hear her coming through the smoke, the sound of hooves steady as a heartbeat. To exhausted, frightened soldiers, Reckless wasn't just a horse. She was hope on 4 legs. When the battle ended, the platoon had survived one of the worst nights of the war, largely thanks to her. The men gathered around her, stroking her muzzle, feeding her scrambled eggs and Coca-Cola, which was her favorite. They called her a war hero, and the Marine Corps agreed. After the war, Reckless was officially promoted to sergeant, a rank she received in a full Marine ceremony, complete with a salute, citation, and fanfare. She received 2 Purple Hearts, a Good Conduct Medal, the Marine Corps Combat Action Ribbon, and several foreign decorations. When her fellow Marines wanted to bring her back to the United States at the end of the war, she was denied, despite her bravery and status. However, her fellow Marines supported her. They were her allies and her family. They brought her onto the ship back to the United States anyway. They guarded her, and they said, "You want to give us a problem? Come on, try us." No one did. They let Reckless on. They didn't give the Marines a problem. They guarded her and made sure she had a safe journey to the United States. Once she arrived, she walked down the bridge alone because only officers walk down alone, and she was an officer. She lived out her life at Camp Pendleton, spoiled by the Marines who adored her. She slept in a special stall, munched on her favorite treats, and wandered the base freely. To the men who knew her, she wasn't just a war hero. She was family. When she passed away in 1968, she was buried with full military honors. Today, statues of her stand at Camp Pendleton, the National Museum of the Marine Corps, and several other memorial parks. Reckless wasn't big. She wasn't intimidating. She wasn't even bred for war. She was just brave. A small horse with the heart of a giant. This story reminds me of how important our animal neighbors are to us. We should treat them with care, love, and protection. She was a horse and her family were humans, and they helped each other and cared for each other. They protected one another. When the Marines needed her on the battlefield, she was there. When she needed them to stand up for her so she could retire in peace and back in the United States, they were there for her too. How can we learn to support one another despite our differences? How can we be better allies? I wonder, what can we learn from Reckless's bravery? How can we be brave in these times in which we are living? So think about that. I encourage you, invite you to think about that. How might we be brave in these times? What do you think?
What?
How could we be brave?
I don't know.
I don't know. How might we? Any ideas? What can we do to be brave?
Just push through.
Push through. Yeah. Yeah, what else can we do to be brave? Yes. We can sing. Yes. We can. We can. Oh, if you fall, we get back up and we don't stop. Yes, I love that. Wonderful. I invite you to return to your seats. Thank you.
Each week, when we gather as a congregation, we bring our joys and sorrows about our lives and the world with us into this room. When we ask for remembrance or celebration, prayer or thoughts, this sanctuary becomes a sacred circle. This morning, the congregation is invited to share joys and sorrows in the chat if you're joining us via Zoom, or from this microphone if you're here in person. Remember, this is a time for deep listening and brief sharing. After each person has shared, we will all say together, "In every joy and sorrow, we are held in love beyond belief."
I invite you now into a time of quiet for personal meditation, centering, and prayer. I invite all those with children here to encourage them to participate in quieting their bodies and their minds for this practice. And I invite us all to cherish the sounds and wiggles of the babies and toddlers among us, sonic evidence of new life in our midst. If you have suffered a deep loss in the last year, or if this time of year marks the anniversary of a significant loss in your life, I invite you to stand or raise your hand during the silence to honor your grief. Now, as we hold the quiet time together, may it hold us, each and all. Please join me in prayer. These words by Reverend Vanessa Titang. Spirit of infinite names, center of love, God, be with us in these heavy times. Help safekeeping our tenderness and reinforce hope as we move forward. In holding each other and not giving up, may our tears be prayers that uplift and transform despair into action centered in love. May we make our way out of no way together. Blessed be. Amen. Ashe.
Children of all ages are always welcome here in the sanctuary, but most Sundays, kids are invited to learn together with others their age. If you're an RE teacher or a child age 3 and up and you'd like to do activities with other children, please come up to the front now. The learning and growing our children do is an expansion of our worship. In this spirit, let's sing "May I Be Empty" as they carry the flame of our chalice with them out to their classrooms. Today's reading is by Margaret Weiss. A Recipe for Resilience. This recipe has been tweaked over time, so adjust as necessary. Sometimes it yields more servings than anticipated. Sometimes it needs a bit more of this ingredient or that. It comes from generations who have gone before me, and I've added my own flavor along the way. A Recipe for Resilience. 1 part courage, 2 parts tears of failure and doubt, 1 part deep listening, 1 part each of both silence and laughter, a dash of trust, a pinch of wonder, a heaping scoop of naps and snacks. In a separate bowl, mix together family, friends, and those who challenge you to be your best self, those with whom you disagree. Add slowly to the larger pot. Add a bay leaf for, well, whatever it is that bay leaves do, and let simmer for as long as you need, which is often longer than you realize or anticipate. Keep the heat at an even temperature, hot enough to cook throughout, but not so hot that it burns the bottom. Can be served at room temperature, warm, or even cold if necessary. Serve alongside your favorite blanket, dog, cat, or other soft item. Make often. Share with others. Hold on to the leftovers. You'll need them after a long day that challenges your soul.
The history of the Black empowerment controversy, or sometimes called the Black empowerment tragedy within Unitarian Universalism in the 1960s to 1970s, reminds us that we still have a lot of work to do, specifically when it comes to meaningful inclusion of Black people within our UU congregations and communities. We are a liberal, progressive, and diversity-loving people. At least we say we are. And at least these are our ideals. We go out of our way to talk the talk. And talking comes first from having a deep, authentic desire for change. From this desire come our words, and then what is supposed to come next is our action. But implementing our words and transforming intention into action is where we have struggled and where we are still struggling with today. And so what is the Black empowerment controversy within Unitarian Universalism? Why does it matter? What have we learned from it? How will we do better next time? Being that it's February and Black History Month, I want to share some Black Unitarian Universalist history. And as a Black Unitarian Universalist, this Black empowerment controversy is particularly relevant and interesting to me. And one reason why I'm sharing this bit of history behind the pulpit is because despite attending UU worship services as a child and as an adult, I have no recollection of ever hearing about this part of our UU history preached about or mentioned at all behind the pulpit. The first time I learned about the Black empowerment controversy was when I was a seminary student at Meadville Lombard Theological School, one of the two UU seminaries that we have in our faith. We were given an assignment, and a reading about the Black empowerment controversy was a part of that assignment. I kept thinking to myself, as a lifelong UU, like, why did I not hear about this? So here's what happened. In 1965, race relations all over the United States was a pretty intense issue. The 1960s was at the heart of the civil rights movement. And during the civil rights marches of Selma and Montgomery, Alabama, two Unitarian Universalists who were participating in those marches were killed by white supremacists. 2 years after these murders, an emergency meeting was called to help determine what the UU response would be to the violence that never ended but continued to escalate. At the time, as is the case now, most of the UU leadership were white men. Picture in your mind a bunch of well-meaning white men talking about you without you. Picture them talking about how to address violence and discrimination you and those you love are experiencing every day, but doing so without putting your voice, your lived experience, and you front and center. It didn't take long for the Black folks to get frustrated, to feel invisible, and feel like their voices were not important to the others there. So what did they do about it? The majority of the Black folks present left the meeting. They created their own caucus. And this new caucus was called the Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus. They were able to fully express themselves and come up with ideas, recommendations, and solutions that centered their voices and their lived experience. The Black UU caucus shared their proposals with the others at the meeting. So they did their caucus by themselves. They came back and said, here are some things. And they demanded some genuine autonomy and funding to address the systemic racism within the UUA at that time. In one recollection, and this is found on the UUA website under the Tapestry of Faith, it describes the caucus as being immediately controversial. It explains that the caucus demanded that the conference endorse, without amendment or debate, a series of proposals calling for African American representation on the UU Board of Trustees, the Executive Committee, and the Finance Committee, as well as subsidies for Black ministers. Most remarkably, it called for the creation of a UUA-affiliated Black Affairs Council to be financed by the UUA at $250,000 per year for 4 years. The goal of the Black UU Caucus was clear: create Black-led initiatives that could foster meaningful change from within the UUA. So we go from looking at the UUA response to civil rights, but now you have Black folks saying, we have work to do here before we go out there. And this conflict revealed a fundamental tension and question. How can the UUA effectively discuss a response to civil rights violence when internally there was so much work to do when it came to equitable race relations? Not sure if they were ready for that conversation yet, though, right? So these demands sparked intense debate. Some saw it as necessary and empowering, while others viewed it as divisive, reverse racism. That was a quote, reverse racism, that's what they said. Eventually, the UUA board rejected the Black UU Caucus's proposals. They rejected what the Black UU said they wanted and needed. Instead of accepting the proposals, the UUA leadership endorsed their own solutions to the Black UU concerns. They did this by creating something they called the Fund for Racial Justice Now, with an annual goal of $300,000 to be administered by this new commission that they were going to call Action on Race. My perspective of this is that this enabled the UUA leadership at the time to check the box that they were addressing the structural racism, but only within their own comfort zone. This type of check-the-box phenomena is not something unique to the UUA or to organizations then or even now. And based on this decision, it seemed like the UUA at the time remember, this is in the 1960s, they felt that they knew better than the people most impacted by the structural racism. We know better what your needs are than you do. Eventually, at the 1968 General Assembly, this was about a year later, a motion was passed to fund this Black Affairs Council. This is a good thing. And one of the requests from the previous Black UU Caucus proposal, so a year later, they say, okay, we will fund this one thing from one of the things that you proposed. The motion passed. That's good. However, the UUA leadership at the time backtracked on their financial commitment for various reasons. Primarily, they said because of financial pressures the UUA was facing at the time. You know, we don't have money to put where we say our values are, kind of thing. And so this was an ongoing disagreement. And then at the next General Assembly in Boston in 1969, a vote for funding was proposed, but it was placed at the very bottom of the agenda. We don't really want to talk about it. Let's put it down, and hopefully maybe we won't get to it. I said that, but you put it down there. As a Black person, that's what you think, right? And so the Black folks were like, hey, let's do a vote to try to get it to come up higher on the agenda, because that doesn't feel good to see something so important that we've been trying to talk to you about for so long. It's all the way, it couldn't get lower, right? Can we bring it up a little bit so we can at least get to it? The vote to alter the agenda to place the issue at the top failed by a simple majority, and then they voted again to reconsider the agenda. That failed too. Eventually, Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus members walked quietly out. In a show of solidarity with the Black folks who walked out, more than 400 all white joined. These Black UUs walked out in 1969, and many Black UUs have not come through our doors since. And the few that we have, many do not stay. Or they stay but are often largely still dissatisfied with the state of being Black in our UU congregations. There's not enough time to go into the additional details about what happened and why. There is so much more. But this is the brief overview that I offer in our limited time together. And my hope is that you will research on your own or even consider this situation as a discussion topic in your small group ministries or adult faith development classes. It's worth that. And time has not yet erased the generational pain and trauma that our faith tradition has experienced, especially the pain and trauma of Black UUs. It has been 50 years since the Black empowerment controversy, tragedy, and we as a faith tradition have not yet healed. Imagine how much more diverse we would have been if we would have done right by our Black UU siblings back then. If we would have let them lead on the concerns that impacted them. If we would have implemented their proposals instead of saying, no, your proposals are not good enough. No, you don't know what's best for you. And even if you do, it's too much, more than we're willing to do, more than we're comfortable with. Imagine. We can't go back. We can't change the past. We can only move forward. And positive change has already begun. For example, 2016, the UU Board of Trustees committed $5.3 million to the Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism. If you don't know who Blue are, they are a group of Black UUs. They have sacred space every month. They're primarily virtually online. So this is a big deal. The decision to commit $5.3 million to Blue was motivated in part by the fact that in 1968, the UUA never fulfilled its promise to fund the Black Affairs Council. And this is an example of leadership done right, when leaders acknowledge the past and make better, more loving decisions in the present. In a 2016 UU World article about this $5.3 million commitment to Blue, Reverend Gregory C. Caro Boyd is quoted as saying this: "This $5 million is the current value of a $1 million commitment that the General Assembly affirmed in 1968 to give the Black Affairs Council, but never did." He said, "So we are fulfilling a promise that GA committed us to close to 50 years ago." The article goes on to quote a Facebook post on behalf of the UUA Board of Directors at the time, stating, "This commitment is just one step in a long journey towards fulfilling promises made to Black Unitarian Universalists in the 1960s. We can only go forward. Here we are, 10 years after this $5.3 million commitment toward Blue, toward Black concerns, Black inclusion, and since then, the UUA has continued to provide curated resources, conferences, and more that support Black Unitarian Universalists in connecting with one another and supporting UUs who are not Black in better understanding Black UU history and how to fully include and embrace Black UUs in their congregations and communities. And where I'm going with this is the UUA has been working on this higher level intention to support meaningful Black UU inclusion and belonging within our faith. But what have we done as a congregation to cascade this intention and apply it to our own? Do we just ignore these facts and the history and hope that we don't accidentally speak a microaggression or do the wrong thing to a Black UU and just deal with it when that happens? Or do we regularly hold microbias trainings and offer small group ministry topics on Black UU history? Or do we deepen our allyship, so that we can be proactive? What are we choosing? And if you were at the UUA's General Assembly this past year, and if you saw the theme for this year, it's pretty much the same. It's a continuation of the theme, meet the moment. So 2025, it was meet the moment. 2026, meet the moment together everywhere, right? But I like this theme. And you know what? It was relevant last year, and it is still relevant this year. We can meet this moment. And the UUA is leading by example. And so what can we learn from this example? One lesson, I believe, is that it's never too late to do the right thing. We can put energy into regretting the past, or we can put energy into creating the future we know we can have. This is important because simply having representation is not enough. To say we have a Black on the board of trustees, or we have a Black worship associate, or we have a Black person behind the pulpit a few times a month, that's not enough. At least not in 2026. What worked years ago doesn't work now. To meet the moment now requires more than Black representation. It requires more than Black people just being present. They need to be genuinely included, feel genuinely included. From my personal experience, I have experienced where, can you come and do this thing because we need a Black person? I know how that feels like. I also know how it feels like when we're not just trying to have a Black person, we want you. We need to move beyond representation into authentic inclusion. And so this might look like inviting, let's say, a Black person to write an original reflection versus just giving them a reading to read that they never chose or never created. It might look like not just having Black people present during worship, but having their ideas incorporated and their culture included. It's different. It could look like saying yes to guest speakers that they suggest and finding more ways to say yes to their ideas versus no. What I find interesting about the Black empowerment tragedy is the way that the Black UUs instinctively had to literally separate themselves and form an independent caucus in order to have the safe space needed to share ideas, express themselves, and create a proposal. This is because when the Black people were integrated into the larger group, they did not have the safe space they needed to fully express themselves. The larger group came with its own constraints and norms and structures that prohibited their full creativity and voice. And this is why I believe that even when you have Black people included in worship service planning, the end result still pretty much looks similar to what would have been created if they weren't included. However, if you go to a worship service planned exclusively by Black Unitarian Universalists, or when you have a Black UU caucus-type group that brainstorms together and then offers those ideas to the worship team, the service turns out very different. And I know this because it's been my lived experience as someone who often attends worship services created 100% by Black UUs, such as those offered by Blue, as well as someone who has caucused with Black UUs and submitted proposals to worship teams. So I've seen it. And a question that can come from this is this: have you encouraged or invited the creation of a Black or even a BIPOC caucus group, which could offer proposals or guest speakers or ideas on how to make worship in other areas of congregational life more inclusive, welcoming, and aligned with what inspires them, which might also potentially attract more Black and BIPOC people? The caucus group could even be temporary. It can meet just once a year. Say, okay, where are our Black folks at? Where are BIPOC folks at? Once a year. Let's get ideas the worship team can consider and find ways to implement throughout the year. So meet once, caucus, have your proposals, share it with the worship team, and the worship team can manage how they want to include those things in. And the worship may look different. Now, what happens if specific ideas of the group get rejected? Because it's possible that not 100% of the ideas that the caucus group comes up with will be implemented. So how can we be respectful of the ideas without causing harm and distress, without causing contributors to feel like the invitation was in vain? So I was recently in an ethical leadership and social justice class earlier this month. I'm always doing professional development and learning, and there was a quote from this class that struck me. And it said this, and I quote, "Maintaining open and honest communication is essential. Equitable leaders are transparent about their decisions and the reasons behind them, fostering trust and accountability within the organization," end quote. And I believe this is what shared ministry looks like. When we invite others into the conversation and find ways to say yes rather than no, when we strive to be collaborative, interconnected, and less strictly hierarchical when it comes to co-creating all areas of congregational life, including Sunday worship and all other aspects that makes our community a community. Instead of striving to be collaborative, or actually the idea of striving to be collaborative, interconnected, and less hierarchical, this comes from a 2024 UU World article by Elaine McCardle on shared ministry. And the article was also about breaking with traditional leadership models. Because at the end of the day, meeting the moment requires leadership from each of us at every level. And in this article, Elaine writes that shared ministry is about recognizing that everyone has gifts and skills to share, valuing everyone's contributions, and realizing that while there may be different levels of authority, supervision, and accountability and reporting, at the same time, no one is more important than anyone else. So we can't say, well, I'm in charge of worship, so you don't have input, or your input isn't as important. Yes, you're in charge of this, and because you're a leader, you should be wanting inclusion and feedback. So the article is a refreshing perspective with actionable suggestions on how to meet the moment within our congregations when it comes to power dynamics, anti-racism, and co-creating belonging. And so I invite you to consider this article as another topic for small group ministry discussion and internal leadership development training. So let's think about this. Where would we like to put our energy? Shall we not put our energy into regretting the past or into creating this future we know we can have? The future that I know we can have will probably consider these 4 things. 1, authentic change requires listening to marginalized voices and respecting their calls for self-determination. Attempting to silence or diminish those demands often results in long-term harm. 2, addressing injustice within our communities needs to be accompanied by transparent dialogue and shared goals, not just quick fixes. 3, what resources, opportunities, or events can we use to create or can we share that support Black UUs in feeling welcome and included, and supporting non-Black folks in doing their part to make others feel welcomed and included? 4, when we invite ideas about meaningful participation, the best practice is to deliberately be transparent about decisions to decline or accept them so that we can build trust and demonstrate that we're leading and collaborating in good faith. And so finally, healing begins when we recognize the importance of balancing unity with justice. And healing begins when we understand that true inclusion means stepping back to allow space for those most affected. We co-create beloved community that attracts Black, BIPOC, and other historically oppressed groups when we lean into shared ministry, radical allyship, and creativity. May it be so. Amen. Please join us in our closing hymn, There's a River Flowing in My Soul. Oh, oops, sorry. Oh, please join me as we do our offertory. Thank you, Kelly.
We never have a service without asking for money. This congregation is possible, not because we charge people a fee for Sunday services or religious education, and not because we receive money from the government or from our denomination. Everything this congregation is and does is possible because we choose to share our gifts here. All of our gifts are important, including our financial support. However you choose to make your gift, I hope you will join me in giving generously. Now, please join me in dedicating all of our gifts to the mission of this congregation. To celebrate joyful spiritual community where we connect deeply, serve, and mobilize for our collective liberation. Sunday support volunteers will now pass around the baskets as the offering is greatly given and received.
They say every man needs protection. They say every man must fall. But I swear I see my reflection somewhere so high above this wall. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. They say everything can be replaced. They say every distance is not near. But I remember every face of every man who put me here. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Yonder stands a man in his lonely crowd, a man who swears he's not to blame. All day long I hear him shouting so loud, just crying out that he's been framed. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. I see my light come shining from the west down to the east. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Any day now, any day now, I shall be released. Flowing in my soul, there's a river flowing in my soul, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my soul. There's a river flowing in my heart, in my heart. There's a river flowing in my heart, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my heart. There's a river flowing in my mind, in my mind. There's a river flowing in my mind, and it's telling me that I'm somebody. There's a river flowing in my mind. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river flowing. There's a river. There's a river flowing in my soul.
The articles I mentioned in my sermon, I will share them with your newsletter folks so that you can have access to them. Again, I invite you to review them personally or in small groups. Thank you. Thank you. Now please join me in the words of our chalice extinguishing. Carry the flame of peace and love until we meet again.
Hi, everybody. Before we play the last song for you, I wanted to just explain some of the references in the song. And the song was written by the great Laura Nyro, who you may remember from way back when. And this song was written in 1968 during the backdrop of the civil rights movement. And in the song, you're going to hear a reference to a king, and that king is Martin Luther King Jr. And you're going to hear reference to the two young brothers, and those brothers were Robert F. Kennedy and John F. Kennedy. The Glory River that's referenced in the song was Laura Nyro's metaphor for people coming to become united in the search for the common good. So that's what those references are in the song, and I think those are important and will help for you to enjoy the song more. Oh, come on, people, come on, children, come on down to the Glory River. Gonna wash you up, gonna wash you down. We're gonna lay the devil down, gonna lay that devil down. Oh, come on, people, come on, children. There's a king at the Glory River, the precious king. He loved the people to sing. Oh, babes in the blinking sun sang, we shall overcome. Oh, I got fury in my soul, fury gonna take me to the glory goal. In my mind I can't study war no more. Save the people, save the children, save the country. Oh, come on, people, sons and mothers, keep the dream of the two young brothers. Gonna keep that dream, gonna ride that dove. We can build the dream with love. We can build the dream with love. We can build the dream with love, people. We can build the dream with love. I got fury in my soul, fury gonna take me to the glory goal. In my mind I can't study war. In my mind I can't study war. In my mind I can't study war no more. Save the people, save the children, save the country.